Welcome back to On the Couch. Interested in philosophy? Did you know that Rowan has a philosophy club? With us is Nathan Bauer from the Philosophy Club.
Hi.
Okay, so when do you usually meet?
We meet usually at Wednesdays at 5 p.m. and we typically meet every other Wednesday. So there's sort of two programs for student events in philosophy. We have the student club, the philosophy club, and then there's also a theorizing series, which is sort of lectures, guest lectures by faculty and people from other universities. So they're usually one Wednesday and then we're the following Wednesday, and we sort of go back and forth between the two.
So before we get into what the club's about, what is your position here at Rowan with the club and not with the club?
So I'm an instructor here at Rowan. It's my third year. So I teach a lot of history of philosophy. I teach also a lot of philosophy of science. And then I'm the faculty advisor for the philosophy club. Yeah.
So the club, you said they normally meet on Wednesdays. I understand you guys had a meeting already this year. What did you talk about in the meeting, maybe for those who missed it?
Yeah, so what we did the previous meeting, well, here's what we typically do. We sort of pick a topic in advance, and it could be anything. It could be questions in ethics, aesthetics, any sorts of areas of philosophy. And so we pick something, I put out posters, and it's open to everyone. So we usually get a pretty good turnout, about a dozen people or so. The most recent session we did, the topic was the social contract. So it's questions about how you justify political authority. And so I introduced the topic, and then it's really just sort of a free-for-all. We all sort of express our opinions and sort of debate back and forth, and it's a lot of fun. And we just sort of hash out the issue for an hour and 15 minutes.
So do you have to be like a philosophy major?
Oh, no, definitely not. We try to sort of keep it open for everyone. There's nothing to read in advance. So a lot of our majors come, but a lot of people, I think, come who are just sort of naturally interested in philosophy, but maybe they don't have a lot of time to take philosophy classes. So we actually end up meeting a lot of people from outside the major, and even some people end up deciding to take the major because they love the club so much.
So this is obviously a little bit of off the cuff question,
Yeah.
But you have your three main philosophers: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Do you go talk about one more than the other, or is it just kind of like everyone's equally distributed? Of course, with the philosophers today too.
I think it sort of just depends on the topic. So philosophy is kind of interesting in that we're very interested in our own history, so we do a lot of work looking back into the ancient Greek philosophers. One of my favorite philosophers is the German philosopher Kant, so from the 1700s. So I'll often bring him into the conversation, but it's not necessarily historical. It could just be sort of hashing out a particular issue and just trying to explore the problems involved. But yeah, it's true. We often appeal to Plato and Aristotle, and yes.
How long does your meetings usually take?
We usually go 75 minutes, and honestly, usually they have to sort of kick us out the door because we're still arguing about various things, and the next class wants to come in. Usually 75 minutes. Yeah.
So you said you have about a dozen people coming to each meeting. What is the overall kind of goal of this club to help it grow and to kind of get the message of philosophy out to students?
It's been a very rewarding thing. It's actually my favorite thing to do at Rowan because we started off very small. It was just me and another student and a couple other students just doing a sort of reading club. And it's sort of gradually expanded over my time here. And we've had, I think, a dozen is probably a typical turnout, but we've had up to 20 people.
Oh, wow.
And it's great. I love it. And so it's good for recruiting for our major and our minor, but also I think it's just a good outlet. I think a lot of people just love talking about philosophy, and they don't get that many chances to do it. So I think it's great for the students, and I love it as well.
I took a philosophy class, and we talked a lot about free will in this class.
Yes.
And there was a couple heated arguments. What happens in the club when there's something where you have one side to extreme and another extreme? How do you kind of get to that while keeping the whole discussion philosophical and knowing what you're talking about, staying on track?
I mean, I enjoy that. I think I enjoy the back and forth, and I like the fact that it gets lively. We have some very strong personalities, but we also have enough sort of regular members that come, that we sort of know each other really well and have become friends, and so we can disagree very strongly, but we don't take it personally at all. And I think that's a nice thing about philosophy, is it sort of cultivates that attitude of sort of fighting really hard for your position, but in a very friendly, not in an aggressive way at all. And at the end of the day, you just sort of, whether we've sort of changed our minds or whether we agree or disagree, we just sort of enjoy having sort of worked through it.
And do you guys have any sort of website or social media students could go and check out, maybe learn more about the club or just find out when meetings are, just in case they forget?
Yeah, so the best place to get updates, well, two places. I post a lot of posters around campus, and so you can get sort of information about that. And then we also post everything regularly to our Facebook site. And I cannot remember the exact URL, but it's if you sort of Google for Rowan, Philosophy and Religion, Facebook, we have a site, and that's where we sort of update with all the posters and scheduling information.
Now, being you are an advocate of the club, but you probably have a lot of information. What's just the benefit of studying philosophy and maybe just even being a part of the club or even minor or majoring in it?
Yeah, so this is a question I get a lot because people always worry, what can you do with philosophy,
yeah,
right? But actually, the record is really amazing. The sort of critical thinking skills and the ability to read very carefully and to sort of defend your position clearly turns out to be incredibly useful. And if you look at the actual data, people in philosophy do better than almost anywhere else in the humanities and social sciences, and their mid-career salaries are really excellent. So this is something we're always trying to sort of convince people of, because we have a reputation, right, that you can't do anything with a philosophy degree, and actually you can do tons of things with a philosophy degree. And if you look at a lot of CEOs of businesses, a surprising number of them actually have philosophy degrees and are looking for people with that, just because they can think critically, they can think outside the box, they can defend their positions well, they can write well. So these are the sort of skills we're trying to promote both in the major and then in the club as well.
So I'm going to put you on the spot right here because I did my research. Can you name the president that actually had major in philosophy?
Oh boy.
He's recent, I'll give you that.
My guess would be Clinton.
Yes, good. I like, yeah. So, I always think it's interesting, definitely, how you could see people. There's a lot of famous people that major in philosophy. I was able to just, just a quick Google search, and it's amazing. Now, do you have one particular skill in philosophy that you think kind of makes you, better in your arguments against people, like whatever you're going on a stance with?
I think, the skill I've sort of most focused on is just the ability to taking a position to sort of clearly see the logic that sort of to defend the view and to be able to sort of break it down into the different premises. And that's a skill we really try to cultivate, because it's not just about whether you sort of like the conclusion, but it's about how you can sort of properly justify it. And I think philosophers get to be really good at that. Like Clinton, perhaps.
So you said there's no assigned readings or anything?
Right. Yeah, it's meant to be very sort of open. So even if you've never taken a philosophy class before and you're just sort of curious about what we do, if there's a particular topic that just sort of catches your interest, everyone's sort of welcome to come, and we try to make it very accessible for everyone.
So on the website, something about cultural relativism, if I'm saying that right?
Yeah, cultural relativism.
Relativism.
Yeah.
What exactly is that, and what was the discussion about that?
So that's the claim that what we consider true can just vary from one culture to another, and there's no objective truth to certain, it could be moral beliefs, right? So maybe our ideas of right and wrong might vary from one culture to another, and so people debate, is that the case, or are there certain objective truths that are just sort of period morally right or wrong, regardless what culture you come from? And people take different stands on that issue. Yeah, I lean, I guess, towards the objective side a little bit, but lots of people disagree with that. Yeah.
What do you think is the hardest thing about teaching, studying, or even discussing philosophy?
I think when I'm teaching it, I find that students initially, it can be very abstract at times, and so it can take a while to learn just sort of the sort of typical ways we approach problems, and being able to sort of breaking down a puzzle into argument and sort of working out the premises. And it can be just sort of, I think the abstraction can be difficult if you're not used to that sort of thing. So that can, I try to sort of give them lots of clear examples to sort of motivate the puzzles we're dealing with. But I think that's sort of one of the burdens that people have to just get used to.
And What you said you teach philosophy of science.
Yes.
And what was the other course?
I do a lot of stuff in history. We have courses World Philosophy 1 and World Philosophy 2. So World 1, your friends Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, and World 2, more recent philosophers. So I teach both of those classes, but mostly philosophy of science. I teach a lot of philosophy of science.
So how does what you teach kind of tie into what you say in the club, and is because you teach one certain way, is that kind of the way you lean?
Well, I mean,
discussions, at least.
I definitely, the way I teach, I like to encourage a lot of discussion. I don't like to be just sitting at the front of the class lecturing over and over. So that could definitely connects up. I think it's one of the reasons I like the club is it's a chance to just, I like the sort of the back and forth. And I think the only way to really learn philosophy well is to be actively engaged with it. So that's why the club is great for that, because you're just sort of participating in the conversation. And I try to sort of bring that back into my class and make it a little bit the same format. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us today on the couch. Thanks for talking about what you do and the Philosophy Club. It's a pleasure having you.
Great, thanks for having me.
And please join us again next week for more on the couch.